And I'm presenting this, but this is definitely not my work alone. And you see a lot of names here on the slide as well. And most importantly, for what I'm presenting here now is Carina Cornesse, and also Marie, who is, so Marina Cornesse was a postdoc with me until recently, and Marie, a student assistant, a very gifted student assistant, who's soon going to be a PhD student as well. So let me start into the presentation. So all of you know what Corona is, all of you know what COVID is, but just recap a little bit what the developments were, at least in Germany, back in 2020. So you see here a timeline, and we had a few first confirmed cases, which no one took seriously at the end of January. And then at the end of February, there was actually already the crisis cabinet installed by the German government. But still we were kind of, oh, that's probably going to go away. And then by so just 2 weeks later, by mid-March, it was clear that this is going to stay. And so about, I think it was the 14th of March, Uli Krieger, who was working with me on the JIP, and we had a detailed conversation, and we decided, well, we need to do a study on this and track this more in more detail. And so we had 1 week in which we made sure that we allocated funding, that we got contracts set up and for the programming and so on. And then and design a questionnaire, got the team together and everything. And then on the 21st of March, on the 20th of March, sorry, I'm going the wrong way around, we started the Mannheim Corona study. And already the day after, the first national lockdown measures started. So that was when the schools closed, and then they didn't do everything at once, but they slowly developed. So initially the MCS was planned for 6 weeks, but then we got funding from the Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs, and in total it ran for 16 weeks until the 10th of July. And what was that? So and the nice thing is that we were really early in the whole Corona process. We were just before the first national lockdown, and also after the first national lockdown ended. And we thought, naively, as you probably did as well, okay, now it's over more or less. In May, we continued. And the other nice thing is that we were able to do this all in the German Internet panel, which had been running for a long time and also ran on afterwards as well. So let me tell you a little bit about the JIP on that note, but there's much more to tell. But first of all, very importantly, the JIP is based on a national probability sample of individuals aged 16 to 75 at the time of recruitment. And it's an offline recruited sample with normal probability-based sampling measures, the way you would do that in a face-to-face survey as well, or a postal survey as well. The online methodology is we do a questionnaire every other month, about 20 to 25 minutes. The whole sample is surveyed each way, so we don't have this subsampling that some panels do. It's mobile optimized, which is by now probably standard, and we have quite high panel retention. So wave on wave retention after, let's say, after a year of recruitment is above 97%. So that's high, I would say. Still, it accumulates, of course, over time, but we have nice retention rates here nonetheless. Yeah. And then importantly, it's really a panel data infrastructure in terms of longitudinal data infrastructure. We have online panels that are more kind of a pool of respondents, but in the JIP is really a longitudinal survey. So it's always been like that, and it was now as well. And so we have information on all the individuals at least since 2018. We'll see that on the next slide, but the first data collection even reached back until 2012, right? So by that we have information before Corona, during and after on the same individuals. So the JIP data collection, we have had 3 rounds of recruitment in 2012, 14 and 18. I don't like calling that refreshment samples, because refreshment samples assumes that you're trying to adjust for something, but these were really new samples. They're independent samples each time. And as I said, everyone is invited to be interviewed or surveyed each wave, so every other month. Now, the Mannheim Corona study comes in here in 2022. And there we, now it gets a little bit complicated, so stay with me. We took the JIP sample and we divided it up into several subsamples, and 7, in total 8, 7 of these subsamples were allocated to a day of the week each. And the 8th subsample we kept as a control sample and was not allocated to the Mannheim Corona study. We kept that as a control sample to do the analyses that we're now that I'm now able to show you, right? To see what impact the MCS has on the rest of the JIP. So the other 7 subsamples, so subsample 1 was allocated to the Monday, subsample 2 to Tuesday, and so on. And that was the day that each week the individuals in that sample would be invited to participate in the Corona survey. And they had 48 hours to complete the survey. So I call this always, it's a rolling panel design. So it's not like a rolling cross section, but a rolling panel design where we have a panel, but the days always overlapped one day with each other. And each week we have a new questionnaire. A lot of questions stay the same, but still the analysis unit is each week. We have a new questionnaire, but there's difference. The week is made up out of 7 different samples. Right? Okay, so why did we do this? It's because we realized quite quickly that it would be important to see in very much detail how the situation in Germany in terms of social, economic, psychological, political measures develops over time, really on a daily basis. And that's really the strength of the Corona study in hindsight, that we were able to really say each day, okay, the trend is going up or the trend is going down with these and these measures, right? So the people that you see there, that's not relevant. That was just for having a nice slide. But the graph in the background, that is one of the graphs that we generated, where we really had the daily developments over time for one indicator in the MCS. Okay. So at this point, I would like to invite you to ask me questions about this setup, because what I'm going to show you afterwards makes no sense if things were not clear here. And as I told Melanie earlier, I could talk about 2 hours on all of this as well. So if you have any questions about the details, both online. So this is just the title again, and I just wanted to show you that now I'm going from what is the Corona study in the German Internet panel to really what is the methodological impact of all of this. Now, first of all, and that is not really a methodological impact, but that was something that I hadn't realized beforehand, but you get a different possibility of data augmentation, of data linkage with this kind of data. And this is just, so we were able now to link our MCS data to the COVID statistics that came out of the official statistics. In Germany, that's the Robert Koch Institute. So we were able to produce figures like this. And in this figure, the bars, the light gray bars, that is the COVID statistics. And you'll see that they're not really very smooth because they always lag behind on weekends. So that's why they go up and down all the time. But that's the COVID statistics in the background. And the other, the dark line, and then you have the confidence interval with it. That is the proportion of persons who say that they've met socially with some other people in the previous week. And if you remember, we started the study just before the lockdown, and so the previous week was fully before the lockdown. But you see so that's still quite a lot of people who met with other people socially, and then it goes down, and then it goes up again. And the reason why it goes up further after the end of the lockdown is because we didn't measure really. We measured before the lockdown, but people had become already much more careful with meeting up with other people before the lockdown was officially instituted, as we probably still are, right? We probably don't meet up as we used to, right? So, and this is quite nice that you can do this kind of graphs, but you can of course also run the analysis. Mind you, the COVID statistics have lots of problems with them as well. But that was something I hadn't realized beforehand. The other thing is that we can link the MCS data to the GIP data previously and also afterwards then, of course, as well. And this is a graph from I'm co-author of the paper, but from a colleague of mine, a substantive researcher, sociologist, who looked at work satisfaction during Corona and before. So this is data from September 2019, I think it says somewhere, and April 2020. April 2020 is the MCS and work satisfaction and family satisfaction. So you can do these nice comparisons in terms of what the impact of the Corona measures and Corona pandemic in general are. Okay, now Willem just earlier asked what are the MCS response rates. So let's have a look here. So the response rates and bias, and the bias is expressed in terms of average absolute relative bias, AARB. So relative bias is probably a concept that you know. We take the absolute value of that so that we don't have minus and plus, and then the average across many different indicators. But so in the background, you see again the COVID figures so the bars, and then the dark line is the bias. And the lighter gray line is the response rates. So you see the response rates are somewhere between 60 and 70%. You see they go up and down a little bit. So it depends on the day of the week. You could guess that there is a slight downward trend, but that's not significant. So there is essentially the response rate stayed relatively stable for the MCS over the course of the study. At the very beginning, we have a little bit of a lower response rate, and that's just because people had no warning that this is what we were going to do, and then they got used to it. But that's only at the very, very beginning. You can see it there. Same thing is true for the bias, very stable over the course of the Corona study.
May I ask you? Before you were doing also this panel data collection.
Yeah.
And did you also measure at that time every week?
Once again?
Did you measure, ask the people to participate in a survey every week?
For the JIP?
Yeah.
Never, no. Always
never.
every other month. Yeah, so it was completely new.
So you cannot compare how it goes. Well, you have, let's say, people which have to say every week something to you.
Yeah.
Is more difficult than if they have, let's say, every month or so.
Yeah.
So you have a trend of some people which are dropping out or are really answering less and less. So this is a general figure, but it is not. And you can also look at individuals, whether they are continuing participating. I mean, you have the same response rate, more or less, but it doesn't mean that it's
the same people. No, of course, but it's the same pool of people, of course, because it's a longitudinal study. Yeah, that's a good point. We should have a look at whether like I think Peter Luchter did that type of analysis for the list once, whether the stayers and the lurkers and so on, whether that kind of pattern is different for the MCS than it was for the JIP. We haven't done those analysis yet. But to be honest, I was surprised that we got those response rates because so for the JIP they were used to having a survey every other month. And they had 1 month to complete the survey. And here they had 48 hours and received a survey every week. At the same time, it was of course clear to the participants that this was a very specific thing and it was Corona and we all worked together and so I do think that there is a bit of a spirit that was behind that made people more likely to participate. Plus, I don't know how it was in Spain, but in the first lockdown in Germany, quite a large proportion of the population was essentially at home and not doing very much else, so they could do our service. They couldn't go and play tennis or something.
Stable along the time, so it's quite surprising because at the beginning this idea of let's work together.
Yeah, and this went on until 10th of July, and that's when school holidays started already and so on.
What about the incentives?
So the JIP usually has a €4 incentive plus a bonus each year, but €4 per wave, and this had €2 per wave. So it's comparable. Okay.
Does it matter? If they get €2, does it matter whether if you give them €2 or not?
I didn't test it. I would have, So actually, we thought about that, but within 1 week, there's just so much in terms of let's try this out and let's try that out that you can manage. And so we wanted to make sure that we have some data to actually do analysis. But I think it was actually Uli Krieger who said, let's keep the controls sample. And I would say, let's do that so that we can do this kind of analysis. So now we have the MCS in terms of its bias, because, well, in AARB, it doesn't tell you very much, shows you that it's stable over time, but it doesn't tell you how it compares to other studies. And so we compared it to the JIP in general, but also to the German General Social Survey, that's the ALBUS. And now it's very small because it's a screenshot from another paper. Essentially so the dark dots, that's the JIP, the blue bars and dots is the ALBUS, and the yellow is the MCS. And essentially you see that there is no clear pattern where everything is better. You see a difference between the ALBUS and the JIP and MCS a little bit, because the ALBUS is a face-to-face survey and online surveys and face-to-face surveys differ a little bit. But it's not that the MCS is now so much more biased on all kinds of indicators, different from what you would have expected. right? Okay. So now, now we come to something that goes into the direction of panel conditioning, or just the effect of what this increase in frequency has on the JIP in general, right? And so we start with the impact of the MCS on JIP response rates. Yep. Yeah, okay. And I said, remember how this worked, but I think this is clear now. So these are the JIP response rates among MCS invitees and the control group. Remember, one sample, the 8th sample, was the control group. And you see that the control group has higher response rates across all the waves. So we still did the JIP in March, we still did the JIP in May, and we still did the JIP in July, which was the overlapping samples, and then we also have the other samples there. We have higher response rates. However, we go a little bit back and add September 19 and January 20, we see that already there it had higher response rates. So we checked for the random allocation, and all the social demographic characteristics that we looked, there was no difference, but in terms of response rates, it turns out random allocation allocated a slightly higher response rate to the control group, or response propensity to the control group than to the MCS group. We've controlled for that, and there are still some significant differences, but it doesn't look like the same. So it has a very mild impact on response rates. Surprisingly so. That's why we had the control group, because we wanted to know whether we're destroying the panel with this, but apparently it doesn't. If you're wondering about the differences in confidence intervals, that's just because the control group was just much smaller sample. And now panel conditioning. So this in this graph you see in the round, in the circles, you see the waves that we were at. So when we started the Corona study, we're already in the field with the 46th wave of the JIP. So people who had started in 2020, they were in this 46th wave at that point. And this Corona study overlapped with the 46th, 47th, and 48th wave. Just for context. So we have possibility to look at the impact of the MCS on waves 46 until 55, which is the wave that is currently available for analysis, freely available for analysis. So that's the waves that we can look at in terms of content, panel conditioning content. So do we find differences between the MCS treatment and control group? Yes, we found 22 significant differences. However, not really a clear pattern. And then more importantly, if we add the Bonferroni correction, then only 4 differences remain. And these 4 differences go into different directions and make no clear sense to us. So really, I would say we didn't really find any evidence of panel conditioning effects on the JIP. Why might that be? Might be that it's just because panel conditioning is something that we often worry about, but generally find very little of in practice. That might be the case. Might also be the case that because the JIP had been in the field for such a long time already. I mean, the newest recruits had been in the JIP already for 2 years, for 12 waves. That in that kind of situation, it makes no difference anymore, so that they were already so committed. But we don't really find much evidence of panel conditioning. So with that, I'll summarize. Setting up the MCS and running it for 16 weeks was really a major undertaking. So we slept very little in that time. We had a lot of work, not only with the MCS, but also because government departments wanted our data, wanted our results, and they were very demanding in that. And we were very happy to work with them because we thought this is a possibility to finally have a real impact as a researcher, which we often don't really have the feeling that we have. We often like what we're doing just because we like that kind of stuff, but not that we really feel that it's valuable. So that was really nice. But it was only possible because we already had this infrastructure of the JIP and a very smooth running infrastructure with a very, very dedicated research team. And that's both JIP team, but also people from our research center, substantive researchers who chipped in and put in a lot of time and effort. I've only shown you the data results, but we also produced daily reports. So on every weekday, not on the weekends, but on every weekday, we updated our reports on the numbers and so on. So that was, well, it was automatized at some point, but that was, of course, a lot of work as well. Yes, so the data were used by government ministries in the crisis cabinet, and since then also by lots of researchers. And so only the team that I'm involved with within these 2 years, we've had about 10 journal articles that came out of the MCS. So and of course many more researchers use this data as well. So we were very happily surprised that we achieved high response rates and didn't see such an increase in biases. It's not something that I expected, but I was happy about that, of course. And also that the MCS only has small effects on the JIP in terms of response rates and in terms of panel conditioning. Yes, and I think that was the last part. Thank you for your attention, and I'm happy for any further questions.